Hello, everybody, and welcome to Plaid Stallions Toy Ventures. I am Brian, your host, and this week we're going to talk about one of my favorite science fiction television shows of all time, V. We're mainly going to focus on the merchandise surrounding this cultural phenomenon, whether it's licensed or not. As always, there's fun stuff on both sides of that equation. But let's first dig into what V is. V was the brainchild of Kenneth Johnson, known for genre television such as The $6 Million Man, Bionic Woman, and The Incredible Hulk. He would later on create the Alienation science fiction series and direct the greatest DC movie of all time, Shaquille O'Neal in Steel. Changed my mind. The initial V miniseries aired in April of 1983, and it just recently celebrated its 40th anniversary. The two-part, 4-hour event depicted mankind's first contact with alien life, as we meet a race who call themselves the Visitors. They look like us, they talk like us, bring wonderful gifts, and say they come in peace. But as the story unfolds, we discover that all is not it seems. The original concept for V was an allegory to the rise of fascism, and it's pretty easy to see that Johnson patterned the Visitors' look and symbology on World War II Germany. However, this is science fiction, so the Visitors are monsters both literally and figuratively, as the shocking reveal of Part 1 showed us. I was 12 when this aired, and I truly remember the shock of those scenes. It made me a fan for life, and, well, my crush on Jane Badler's Diana didn't hurt either. I was willing to risk the inevitability of her killing and eating me. As we discover, the Visitors' goal is to drain our resources and use us as food to bolster their successes in conquering the universe. Heroes were played by Mark Singer and Faye Grant, with Grant taking on the role of leader. This was refreshing for the 1980s. At the same time, action man Mark Singer got a lot of the heavy lifting in the stunts department. There are some really great early appearances by faces like Robert Englund, who would later become a household name. The first miniseries concluded with the forming of the Resistance and the slightest glimmer of hope. Johnson's plan was to have a miniseries follow up each consecutive year to tell the Resistance' ongoing struggle to save the Earth. Sadly, Johnson fell out with the network over this plan and left the project. V: The Final Battle would air the next year. This 3-part series would bring the original cast back and add some exciting new characters like Michael Ironside's Ham Tyler and Elizabeth the Star Child. V would also somewhat hastily wrap up the invasion of the Earth in a mostly satisfactory level, and it had some incredible gotcha moments that are very memorable. It truly cemented itself as a pop culture sensation. The Final Battle was a ratings smash, and the network immediately greenlit a television series despite just having painted themselves in a rather strange corner with the release of the toxic red dust in the final battle, which made Earth's environment poisonous to the Visitors. V: The series would debut the fall of 1984, with the majority of the casts returning to battle the Visitors' second attempt at taking over the Earth. The red dust was failing in warmer climes, and the Visitors would take over Los Angeles, where much of the show's action would take place. To help make the show look more global, each episode would have a newsreel segment showing how other nations were standing up to these invaders. The expensive series debuted on Friday nights on NBC, facing stiff competition from not only the Dukes of Hazzard, but Webster. It also struggled to find its footing. It started off as something of a World War II style series, with Elias's Cafe being a proxy for Casablanca. The series would also go through 3 major bouts of retooling and shake-ups, with a new starting being introduced with a narrator explaining the plot of the series, and multiple long-running cast members being written off or just killed off during the year. What it also really got was camp. I say this with affection. While one half of the show would be our heroes solving a problem, or that weird love triangle with now a fully grown but technically still 2-year-old Star Child, yeah, I can't make that one up. The show's other half focused on the visitors, mainly on Diana, as she schemed and backstabbed for power. It's almost like Outer Space Dynasty, with Diana filling in for Joan Collins, and the newly added June Chatwick's Lydia being a lizardy Linda Evans type. There are catfights, weird weddings, murders, and did I mention sex? So much lizard sex. But thankfully they kept their human skins on when they're naked. I don't know how that all works. The Friday night series struggled in the ratings and was canceled the summer of 1985. The sets were kept in storage in hopes of bringing it back for yet another miniseries, however, they never came to be. I totally equate watching this show while playing on my Commodore 64 and drinking FBI grape drink. I don't think it gets more 80s than that. It's a really fond memory for me. The launch of the TV series sought interested licensors, just as the original miniseries had predicted 2 years back, showcasing toys of Diana and the ship. Some really exciting items began to appear, such as gum cards, puffy stickers, a monthly comic book from DC, UK annuals, and even a lunchbox. Toymaker LJN, who had just taken a bath on Dune, had planned a series of figures based on the show's main protagonist and antagonists and their vehicles. But sadly, this beautiful line of toys was cancelled in March of 1985, just after Toy Fair. The only item to escape the LJN cancellation was a 12-inch action figure, and it hit shelves just in time for it to languish in clearance, but it was a particularly faithful and clever item. It is based on the propaganda poster and featured a detailed visitor that you could unmask and even had a flicking lizard tongue. I bought one of these in high school. It absolutely knocked me out that it got made, and it was so cool. The story doesn't end here, because as popular as V was in North America, it was extremely popular when the canceled series was sold internationally. It developed fan bases all over the world, and well, a lot of merchandise also followed, a lot of it being the bootleg or knockoff variety. If you're a fan of this channel, you can see how the merging of those two things would be something of a peanut butter and chocolate situation for me. So let's talk about a few of these bootleg V items, and the ones I own and the ones I wish I owned. Now, there's a whole bunch of different rack toys made south of the border that I'm not really going to touch on here, because basically what they did is they just took the V logo and added it to vehicles and spaceships that never appeared on the series. There's very little. There is the odd item that actually kind of looks like it came out of this series, but I've always been more of a figure collector, so that's what I'm going to fixate on for this exercise. You have to watch out too. I can't tell you how many vintage, V or other program merchandise I've found from like countries like Argentina, where it's very obvious it was like made yesterday and they're trying to pass it off as vintage. So know your dealer. Now, these curious figures come from Uruguay, and just so I can answer your question, no, they're absolutely not licensed. I've owned one of these before, and they're kind of charming. Essentially, I think what happened is whatever toy company produced these, they just took whatever they had, being like a knockoff G.I. Joe and a knockoff Barbie, dressed them in red spandex outfits, and hoped for the best. There's some really interesting G.I. Joe pieces knocked into these things, like I think I saw a Sten gun in the Diana figure, if you want to call her Diana. The other curious thing I've noticed about these figures is there seems to be a lot of different variations, different dolls, different outfit types. I kind of wonder if it wasn't just very quickly thrown together with no real thought towards quality control. The packaging is kind of fun. It's very science fiction-y. It kind of looks like they took it from a comic book. They are both awesome and kind of crappy, and they're really expensive too. Now, this little PVC fella, he originates from Argentina. Sometimes people mistake that as Spain. When I was first dating my wife, we bonded over that we both loved V as a kid. And I remember picking this up for like $10 at Chiller Theater back in the day. This is probably going back 25 years. This is a series of 4 PVC figures. They're all pretty crude, but there's a real charm to them. And that includes Julie, Diana, and a visitor trooper. And honestly, this is one of those things, and I think it's a story a lot of collectors can relate to. These things were available forever for like $60 for the set through a company I believe called M&J Variety back in the toy shop days. They would be in the ad weekly for, gosh, I don't know, let's say 5 years. And I always kind of said to myself, yeah, I'm going to pick those up. And then, stuff happened, babies and that sort of thing. And I forgot to buy them. And now coming back to them, they're now priced like they are somehow, I don't know, Fabergé eggs. And yeah, it's one of those, like, when did this happen? Like, what? Those things? You're kidding me. And yeah, that happens a lot. And it's just, when you play the long game in collecting, you see stuff like that. But these are definitely that story for me. I still want a Diana really badly, but even loose, she's like $75. This absolutely wonderful V Visitor Lizard figure comes from Italy. I picked this up a few months back in the Mego Knock Off Headquarters group. The seller also had very similar figures of Mr. T. This is about 6 inches tall. It's quite heavy, and it's a bendy, for better or for worse. And what it is it's definitely supposed to be the Visitor from V. I mean, look at the face. And on his wonderful gold underwear, we see the Visitor logo. And of course, he is carrying the trademark pistol from the series. I just fell in love with this thing. I wish he was 8 inches tall. I know full well that this toy is very simple and slightly crude, but it really gets its point across, and it looks like a fun toy. I can only imagine these were probably sold in a display box. I would really like to see that display box if anyone has seen it. Toy Ventures Magazine is our quarterly print toy magazine dedicated to classic toys from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Issue 10 is dropping next month, but we have all 9 back issues available in our shop. So if you've missed magazines like Lee's or Toy Fair, please consider giving Toy Ventures a try. Thanks. So that is my bootleg V collection thus far. I hope I add to it in the coming years. One of the things I'm really shocked about as we sit here in 2023 is that we're not beleaguered by V merchandise. I thought it would be everywhere by now. I think in the last couple of years we've gotten some, art house figures, and I believe Funko actually went ahead and got the license, but only for Pops, which don't appeal to me. And even though I was slightly tempted, I just passed on it. So I'm really kind of still like fingers crossed somebody gets the V license. And my 2 dream companies for it would be Super 7 and Mego. That's just where my head's at. I love 3 3/4 inch figures, and I also, of course, love 8-inch Mego figures. But I would love to know today what your dream company to pick up the license would be. Is it Hasbro? Is it Mattel? Is it Sideshow? You can let me know in the comments below, or you can let me know in our Facebook group, Mego Knock Off Headquarters. Thanks for joining me, folks. That's all I got this week. If you're new to this, please consider hitting like and subscribe. I do this every week. If you're not new, please consider sharing it. It really helps me out. Until next time, be well, take care, and talk toys, not other people. Cheers.